Ladies and gentlemen, in the last 30 years, more buildings had been built than in the previous 5,000 years before. As architects, urban planners, and researchers, we are confronted with an unknown urbanization process that exceeds all urban developments in history so far. For the first time ever, more people live in cities than in rural areas, and it's estimated that by 2050, this proportion will shift towards 70%. It is, as Margaret Chan, the director of the World Health Organization, puts it, the cities are the future of our world. Interesting enough, governments, planning departments, housing corporations, educational institutions, as well as architects and urban planners tend to ignore the existence of this phenomenon. In order to overcome the paralysis within our professions, it is inevitable to find strategies to close the gap between the actual necessities of the urban poor and the insufficient solutions developed so far. Currently, an estimate of 1 billion people live under precarious conditions in informal settlements and slums, under the constant threat of eviction, without an adequate access to infrastructure, education, potable water, sewage, or electricity. It's needless to tell you that under these conditions, building up a permanent future is more than just a big investment. And yet, surprisingly enough, these uncertainties frequently result in an astonishing source of efficiency and a surprising amount of creativity. Dwellings have to be built with a minimum of materials, often waste products from local industries. Potable water, sewage, and electricity have to be organized. Governance and social coherence have to be negotiated on a daily basis. And last but not least, ethnic, religious, and racial identities are challenged. However, due to missing financial means, and consequently the necessity of being economical and sustainable, informal settlements bear an enormous potential of urban intelligence. It is here where future cities grow. It is here where urban life will be defined. It is here where our future field of action will be.
We want to take you onto a journey to Chile, but also a journey to Ghana. A short introduction into two projects we worked on that evolved out of two very opposing contexts, actually. One is an academic project, and the other one is a project we worked on with our architecture firm from Rotterdam as a professional project, the one in Chile. The brief we got for that one was very simple. How to provide 150 families with a house of 30 square meters that cost not much more than $7,500. And the whole lot wouldn't cover more than 1 hectare of land. Now, if an organization like the Chilean Ministry for Housing, Rockefeller Center for Latin American Studies, Harvard University, come up with such a simple brief, we thought the answer shouldn't be much more complicated than this. And this is literally all we did. We provided a structure that was both a spatial structure on one side and a supply of infrastructure on the other side. It is a spatial grid, if you want, a spatial system that allows people to build in their traditional way of autoconstrucción, as the Chilean call it, of self-construction on one side, combined with what our job would be, something that is providing the basic needs, like electricity, fresh water, sewage, and so on. So it is a cooperation of the architect and the final inhabitant. And I don't need to tell you that this is not about the final design. Even though we're architects, we're designing. But this is not only about the design, this is actually mainly about the strategy, how to come to a built environment. The principle is very simple. The backbone of a house is a slab that is 1 meter wide, 8 meters long, and 3 floors high. It contains everything that is technically important and, most of all, technically complicated to realize. Ducting, wiring, a kitchen, little bathroom, stairs, but also a front door, and very important, a house number. Since there's no number, there's no existence. It's very simple. Additional to this, we kind of provide a multi-purpose room, which is, that would be the first 3 images. The multi-purpose room could be used either for living or for a shop or a workshop or whatever is needed. And after that, continuously, constantly, the house has been reshaped, redesigned by the people themselves. Now, if you consider that a core family exists of 9 to 10 members, that it covers 3, sometimes 4 generations, and they all live in one house, I don't need to tell you that the programmatic issues in how to programming this house are very flexible, they're very manifold, in the way that is as well a house to live in, it's as well a house to work in, or to sell things in a commercial way. It is a very flexible structure. The innovative part of it is actually that it contains 3 floors. Now, that may sound silly to you, because 3-floor buildings is technically not very complicated. But you may know that slums tend to spread horizontally, with the effect that most of the public realm, public space, is being eaten up by construction works. Illegal construction works most of the time, informal, as you may call it. However, through densifying the building volume, we can generate something that is a collective space in the first place. That is a space that allows for public encounter, for social encounter at all. Reality hit us hard when we got to Chile for the first time. The urbanization process was even faster than sketched in the previous speeches before. By the time we got to Chile, which was about half a year later after we won the competition down there, the size of the plot had been increased from 1 hectare to 6 hectares. The amount of families we were dealing with, we were building for, increased from 150 to 450. There was a school, a neighborhood center, and so on and so on. It slowly but surely grew into a little city itself. That made us, on the spot, rethink our strategy on how to deal with the actually designing process, since the people themselves are an integrative part in the design process. And we split up the group of 450 families, about 10 people each. The biggest room we were actually holding the workshops in was about twice the size of this one. And in these groups of about 20 families, we worked with these little models you see here that explain the principles of the spatial structure of the house and how to extend it, and kind of work together on the possibilities how to, also in the later stage when we are gone, they could continue building up and generating their house. Now, interesting enough, not only the design stage, but also in the implementation phase or in the realization phase, these families somehow stuck together during the whole time. Since 2004, we're actually working on this project. And what you see here is actually one of these clusters where 20 families group around this collective space. And of course, if you multiply the clusters, sort of urban tissue is generated. And this is actually the reason why we show this project so often, because it proves actually that you can have an urban development not only planned top-down, but actually by thinking about the specific needs of a specific family, of a specific person living here, for example, and by multiplying it into a certain system, and the system itself multiplies itself. So it's a sort of snowball effect, if you want. Up to the point that we integrated the people, or the contractor actually integrated the people literally and physically into the building process, which actually, again, enhances the identification with the neighborhood and the whole social coherence in this suburb, as you may call it in Temuco, in Chile.
The second project we want to present to you is the VOC Ghana studio. As Ralf already said it was a studio that was initiated out of an academic context, and this working on city studio took place at the Rotterdam Academy for Architecture and Urban Design. The aim of the studio was to deliver a concrete contribution to the improvement of the living and working conditions in the informal settlements in Ghana. It was very important to us to work on a specific site with a specific case study, in this case in Kumasi, the second city of Ghana, in the neighborhood Aija. Here in Aija, the spatial questions were very tightly connected also with social, cultural, economical and political topics. And therefore we decided very quickly to enlarge the group and to take other parties with us into the boat as urban managers and local parties. The IHS, the Institute for Housing and Urban Development Studies, covered the aspects of urban planning, and the CNUS, the Technical University of Kumasi, was our local partner. They enabled us to have access to the site and to the community, something that is very, very evident, because otherwise we have to communicate, we have to ask questions, we have to listen carefully and extract out of this communication the real needs. Besides the improvement of the living and working conditions, we dealt very intensively and on various levels with aspects as microeconomics, sustainable planning and infrastructure. The result of this studio were 4 interdisciplinary projects that formed together a so-called IDP, an integrated development plan, that covered a wide range of scales. Starting with a strategic urban design that integrated food production, so-called urban farming, in the building process. Something that is very possible or very easy done here in Aija, because lots of people from rural areas move into town and they already bring the know-how. They just need the space in the city within the building tissue to be able to do so. And further, it went to the scale of housing and working units that could be assembled as do-it-yourself houses that also provide a basic infrastructure. There's also a very big issue here, because the foundations could provide some infrastructure in this area where erosion is a very big topic. This went hand in hand with the developing of new building typologies for housing, shops, storage, workshops, etc. And of course, we were addressing sustainability issues, such as minimizing the use of materials in general, using local materials and regional building techniques, and to the intelligent reuse of materials. And in Ghana, as well as in Chile, it all comes down to using the potentials of what is there, the potentials of the informal. Thank you very much.